is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Dark Tower, Book 7, The Dark Tower, Part 5, Chapter 2, Mordred. In this chapter, we continue with the trend of important characters getting deaths from characters that they are totally unworthy of them. And I hate it, and it's awful, and everything is the worst, and I'm not going to read anymore. I'm done. Welcome to Unspoiled.
That's a hell of a way to kick things off. Podcast over. I was worried this might be the reaction to this chapter, so...
I'm so irritated, y'all. Hi, everyone. I'm Natasha.
Hi, I'm Miles.
And I only say y'all when I'm real mad.
Oh, really? Is that true?
No, I don't know. It might be true. I don't know.
I say it all the time, so...
It's not part of my parlance, you know.
Fair.
But, yeah. First of all, Stephen King, how dare you? There are so many how dare yous in this book. And this is the biggest how dare you of them all. You're gonna kill Randall Flagg for the sake of Mordred, who then does nothing at all except kill Oy.
Kill Oy, yeah. So, well, let's just quick recap of this chapter.
No, this is what we're talking about.
No.
This is it.
No, I was just going to say, the recap of this chapter can be summed up very easily. Mordred is sick, kills Oy, fails to kill anyone else, and is then killed by Roland. The end.
Yes.
And it takes so long to get there. And this is the chapter that I've been waiting for to, like, finally talk about Mordred and just how useless and stupid he is.
Oh my god.
Because this chapter contains a brief section in which King essentially, like, admits that he knows this is lame, but sort of tries to do... Do you remember, like, when we were covering The World of Ice and Fire, and I got really mad because, like, the one king died of consumption?
Yes. Yeah.
This is like King's going like, look, I'm sorry. Sometimes mythical spider demons that I didn't need to bring into the story die of consumption. And, like, it's fine. I've come to understand. It's fine when you're doing it with, like, some minor side character in a history. It's another thing entirely when it's this character.
And when you say when it's this character, I mean that in every sense.
Yes.
When it's Mordred that you did all this shit for, when it's Oy that you kill, and I feel like it's really just because you just needed Oy gone.
Right.
Which is what this final book is adding up to me. King wanted Roland to be alone for the ending. And it's just a to-do list and him checking off characters, and it's the most perfunctory, infuriating thing.
Well, that's the thing, is that it would be... Like, if he came into this book saying, alright, I want, my story requires Roland to be alone at the end. Mm-hmm. Fine. But, like... And if he even said, okay, like, the goal of this book, we're going to strip away the companions, the quartet, one by one. That's fine. But it feels so...
cheap?
Yeah, it just feels like he wasn't...
contrived?
He didn't bother dressing it up at all, you know what I mean?
Honestly, if it had been framed as he knew that despite having, like, that he created these relationships with people, and by he I mean Roland, that he had never had in his life, really cared about people for the first time, and he realized that the price he was going to have to pay for the tower was sacrificing relationships, suddenly having to give up something. And that it was talked about in that way. And we knew that going into it, and we're just, like, watching with either dread or fascination as that process happened, and Roland understood. I feel like that would be more satisfying in a way, even if he went about all of the rest of it the same way, which I really still don't think he should have done.
Mm-hmm.
At least making it feel like the book is aware of what it's doing. But I feel like King is trying to make it thrilling, and instead it's falling really flat. Because it's pretty, like, I think I said Oy was going to die before the tower, right? Like,
you did, yeah. I think you've been expecting him to die for, like, 3 books.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But honestly, like, of all the deaths, like, okay, so there's Eddie, Jake, Susanna, and Oy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Oy's death is probably, like, the second best of the 4. Like, I have much more of a problem in this chapter with Mordred than I do with the way Oy goes out. Because at least Oy goes out saving Roland. We know Jake told him to do that. We know that's why he hung around, and that's why he didn't go with Susanna. And there's a lot of really nice kind of, you know, pieces of prose associated with it. Like, what's the... There's a great line that I could find. I'm using an electronic copy tonight, just so y'all know, of the book. But there's a line in there about, like, the body that was so much smaller than the heart it had contained, or something. And it was really good, you know, like,
that was a good one.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't love it, but, like, I think it's better than Eddie getting shot randomly, and I think it's better than Susanna kind of magically leaving through a really...
Yeah, so let's talk about, because Krista tweeted at us on this and said, you two aren't going to like this, but Patrick Danville is in the book because he makes Danville a savior in Insomnia, Miles. So though it's not, quote, in the series, Danville is so important to the Tower story, he had to show up.
the way that
your response was, I got no time for writers who make the grand finale of their epic masterpiece incomprehensible to people who opted not to slog their way through the most boring book they ever wrote.
That was my response, yes.
I feel as you do, except without the most boring book he ever wrote.
Well, that's just...
I don't know if it is, but you should not have to have read other books for this to, like, be something that you care about, and that was poor judgment on his part.
The dig about Insomnia being boring was just for Krista, because she and I go back and forth on this all the time, and it's just fun at this point. That just strikes me as such... You know, like, he had to include him because he did this other thing in the other book. Okay. You're the writer. You can do whatever you want, man. Like, that's really...
like, and I get what Chris is saying, that he felt like he had to, but he really didn't have to.
Well, here's the thing that drives me...
He really didn't.
Here's the thing that drives me crazy, and I actually, Krista and I were talking about this on the Facebook chat, earlier today, in fact, and I said, I remembered something, I was like, wait a minute, Insomnia is the book that Roland acquires because the people in the TED Corporation are like, hey, you should read this. It's got a lot of valuable information. And he's like,
there was a trick in it.
There's a trick in here somewhere. I'm not going to read it because it's booby-trapped. And to me, that is like what that says to me personally is, okay, Stephen King wrote himself into some sort of corner in Insomnia, and is now getting out of it by saying insomnia, like, is weird and corrupt or whatever. Right? Like, isn't that what that is for? That's how it felt to me. I don't... I
can't speak to that at all, because I don't know anything about... I feel like you have to have read it to know what he meant with that.
I guess, maybe. I don't know. It just feels to me like that's a perfect opportunity to be like, well, if I did contradict myself in insomnia, here's why it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Right? And I just think that... I don't think Patrick Danville needed to be here, and if he did, then introduce him earlier.
Introduce him earlier, have him be dead at the house. Like, you could have handled it a million ways, and it's just... We've already talked about the weirdness of having, like, another idiot savant character.
Yeah.
And you pointed out that Eddie, created keys and whatnot from... But also, we had Shimi, who fucking died on a train out of sight, and he could literally open portals into other dimensions.
I mean, at the very least, Patrick could have been at the prison, right?
Like any number of different options. This just the combination of all these, like, on their own, each individual complaint isn't such a big deal, but when you put all of it together, it's fucking baffling.
Yeah, I mean,
why kill Shimi off screen? That's my thing. I keep getting hung up on that. Having him die on the train, and no talk of it, no real, like, emotional reaction from Susanna about it, just telling Roland in this very perfunctory way, and then we meet a dude later who can do almost exactly what Shimi could do, like, in terms of getting her home in some way.
Right. He could definitely... Shimi could have gotten Susanna out, for sure.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Just have him survive and travel with them.
I mean, hell, why don't you just say, like... Yeah, have him survive, have him travel with them, and then, like, mention, oh, hey, on a different level of the tower, his name is Patrick Danville. Mm-hmm. Done. I just wrote your book for you. Like, I don't...
Or have him, when he's with them at Dandello's house, then be like, oh, well, what's his face? Patrick Danville really wants to go home. Shimi, can you send him home? And when he does that, Susanna's suddenly like, oh my god, I have to go.
Right.
Because she barely goes past Dandello's place anyway.
There are so many ways you could have done this.
Yeah.
That would have made the book feel less just generally not proofread. Yeah. And I think that's been our major complaint about the whole thing. And if you think Danville needs to be there in some capacity, then fine. Mm-hmm. Like, I just think they're the fact that he is the last person hanging out with Roland before they get to the Dark Tower feels really wrong to me.
Super insulting.
Yeah, and I just, I don't know. I know where it's going. I won't say anything about it until we get there, but it just feels... It feels like King kind of lost interest in some of these characters.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I mean about just checking him off the list.
Yeah.
It's like, he stopped really, like, wanting to invest, like, Susanna with grief and anything that was, like, inconvenient.
Yeah.
It was just totally written off, and we wound up with these, like, people that seem to have no connection to each other until, like, I don't know. It was like, you guys... I don't know if that's supposed to be like, oh, their quartet broke, so it's different now. But, like, I don't feel like that's really what it's supposed to be. I don't know. And, everybody knows how much I hate the whole concept of Mordred. I hate Mordred from his conception, to his name, to him killing Randall Flagg. Everything about him. The fact that Susanna's character was reduced to a pregnant woman. And nobody even told her she was fucking pregnant for ages, too. Completely robbing her of agency. And just There is so much about Mordred that ruins everything for me. Ruins it. And then he doesn't even fucking matter? Really? Are we doing this?
That's what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
He didn't calculate Oi, and that was his mistake. Okay. Sure.
What kills me is the him being sick and dying thing. That's ridiculous. Like, oh, he ate some bad meat. Mm-hmm. What? Why?
Because King needed him to be weak enough that him being kind of taken out by Oi would be believable, I think.
I guess, yeah.
I think that's really what it is.
I mean, that makes sense, or at the very least, he wanted him to be weak enough so it's like, hey, you know, this villain that I've been building up the past 3 books and stuff, yeah, no, Roland could just kill him. You know what I mean? I think that, I don't know, it's so weird. Even within the chapter, there's shit that, I don't know, like Roland blaming Patrick for falling asleep.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fine, but it's like, we know for a fact that the only reason Patrick fell asleep is because the Crimson King did something.
Right.
And in a book this full of, you know, Roland didn't know why he knew, he just knew, it feels really weird that he just immediately assumes that Patrick is just an asshole who fell asleep on him. And there's even one of the things before any of it happens where Roland is like, you know, the book is like, Roland wanted to slap him to wake him up harder, but didn't, which he would regret bitterly later.
Right.
And it's like, dude, you could have slapped him as many times as you wanted to. He was still going to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Because there was magic.
Yeah, that line in particular, when I first read it, I was like, all right, well, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that it was magic causing him to sleep, I was like, okay, now that retroactively makes no sense. So, yeah.
Just, it's
and
so...
And again, with, why is he here?
Who, Mordred?
No, Patrick.
Oh, Patrick, yeah.
And, like, as much as Roland wants to be like, oh, I blame him, if you were alone, there'd be literally nobody, and you were gonna be alone.
Right. Yeah, if either of them...
shaken out the same way.
If either of them had gone with Susanna, right? I don't know, maybe... Honestly, if Patrick hadn't been there, it wouldn't have mattered. Right?
No, that's exactly my point.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because Oi would have done the same thing. Yeah, I really can't get over... I want to read some of this, because I gotta find it here. This bit...
There were a couple things that I highlighted, and I'm irritated because I'm using the app on my computer, and it doesn't say... I thought it would transfer the highlights from my Kindle to the computer app, and it didn't. So, and my Kindle is in my purse. So I don't have the highlights that I made. I'll have to keep my Kindle next to me next time.
Well, this bit there... not since the Prim receded had there been such a creature as Mordred Deshane, who was part hume and part of that rich and potent soup. Surely such a creature could never have been meant by Ka to die such a mundane death as the one that now threatened, fever brought on by food poisoning. And then later it says, the being whose coming had been prophesied for thousands of years, mostly by the Mani folk and usually in frightened whispers, the being who would grow to be half human and half god, the being who would oversee the end of humanity and the return of the Prim, that being had finally arrived as a naive and bad-hearted child who was now dying from a bellyful of poisoned horse meat. Ka could have had no part in this. Which is just...
Yeah.
King's going like, guys, man, this is anticlimactic, huh? What's about to happen? like, is going to be really anticlimactic. And I'm really sorry. It's Ka, y'all.
I think that he thinks, like, by lampshading it, it makes it funny. Or, like, oh, you didn't see this coming.
I mean, it almost does.
It would if he hadn't ruined everything for Mordred's sake.
Right.
If for example, this was happening to Randall Flagg, totally different situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, this would actually be like, oh shit, after all this, that's what's going to happen. That's kind of amazing.
Right. Or if it all
no.
been, like, one big joke, and Mordred had been some character who, like, was being satirized the entire time. You know, like, if this was a Terry Pratchett book...
Right.
You know, it would work fine. And it would be funny. The concept is funny. But you're
now, it says in there that that his coming was foretold. Have we heard about that before? That doesn't feel familiar to me.
No, I don't. As far as I can remember, the only mention of prophecy is the one about the Crimson King being killed by, like, King Arthur's guns, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that one was a fairly recent development also.
Yeah, they found out that at the castle with the three dudes who were actually Rando Thoughtful. Sorry. I really thought I could say Rando Thoughtful with a straight face. I was really trying. But yeah, it's... I don't know if there was a prophecy, like... I think... It's easy to kind of, like, assume there was. Like, if it had never been mentioned before, and somebody was like, oh, by the way, he's the Antichrist, and he was prophesied, like, his coming was foretold, I'd be like, alright, that sounds right.
Right.
You know? But it's just, for you to be saying these things about this character who completely hijacked the plot of this story.
Yeah.
At the end of... the fifth book, in the beginning of the fifth book, if you want to talk about what it did to Susanna's character development, completely hijacked the story. We needed literally all of book 6 to talk about how, like, the means by which he was born. Shows up in book 7, scary as hell, and kills fucking Flagg. And is very clearly being set up as the big villain. It's like when he wrote the first part of this book, he hadn't realized that he had to deal with the Crimson King, too.
Right.
Like, and somewhere in the middle, he was like, oh shit, I have to make Mordred pathetic, actually, because he's not the ultimate villain, his dad is. But how can that possibly be what he was thinking? Like, it couldn't... That's the thing, is that all of these things are happening within the same book and sometimes within the same chapter. This should not be a series of problems that needed to see print. I'm so confused.
Yeah.
I'm just so baffled.
It really... like, I'm kind of startled... anew, and I've said this already, but, like, you know, and I don't know what's going to happen, but we don't have far to go here, folks.
We don't.
I don't think there's any undoing this. That this is considered a really great series. It just doesn't hold up. It just doesn't. Like, the first 3 books are awesome. The 4th book, I liked it, but I could understand why people didn't.
Right.
There's a lot of the same thing over and over. And then you just have a disaster, pretty much, from there on, where we start to, like, get into, you know, the whole thing with the Falcon and the wolves, which it turns out, like, that sounds so interesting, and then it turns out to be something that's... The fight is really anticlimactic, and it's all... If you told me that I was going to look back on a book where children are abducted, their brains are sucked dry of their psychic power, they're returned mutated and fucked up to their families, while that psychic power is used by other, like, mutant people to try and break the universe.
Yeah.
I would think that sounds rad. But instead he focuses on all the wrong things and makes it so that we don't actually find out about a lot of that stuff until the book is almost over, book 5.
Right.
And then we have a fight with these androids that's nothing. And then we go to dealing with Susanna's pregnancy, which is horrible. And it's just like, from there, it's just I don't understand. I just don't understand how it could go so badly wrong and keep getting worse. Every book, it was like, I kept being like, all right, well, maybe. And now we're here. And Mordred is worthless. And I wasted my time, and I'm angry. King, what were you thinking, guy?
I said in the Facebook chat today, I just kind of offhand mentioned that the extent to which I had no idea what I was getting into when we started this podcast, because longtime listeners may recall,
yep,
when we started this thing, I had not read the last 3 books. I did not know where this was going. And
I think that's why a lot of people were like, I wish you'd finish, because they wanted you to have that, like...
Yeah.
But I don't know if you could have held up the
perspective.
facade.
Well, and here's the thing, though, is that, like, I'm sure, and we've talked about this before, but, like, I'm sure somebody who's super into, like, the collected works of Stephen King gets a lot more out of this than I do. But that doesn't excuse it. And I think if I had known, like, if I had known how the book, the series concludes, and again, I want to stress, we have not yet reached the ending. Mm-hmm. And there's still a lot to talk about. But if I had known, I would have at least been like, hey, so just so you know, Natasha, there's going to be a point. It's funny because it's shortly after they take a ride on the train where the story gets derailed, if you will.
Lol.
And it doesn't really recover, again, utterly and completely depending on how you feel about the end. So, like, I really want to wait before casting any judgment because it really does, like, there is not much time left, but there is a lot of stuff that's about to happen. That said, though, it can't be denied, even if the last 2 or 3 chapters, however much longer there is, even if the end of it is, like, it could be the greatest prose that's ever been conceived. And it could tie up the series beautifully. It still wouldn't excuse the sheer amount of wasted time created over the course of the series. Because how long did this book need to be?
This is what I'm saying. There's no undoing any of this.
Yeah.
Like, no matter how great the ending is, and I just don't buy that it will be,
okay,
I can't excuse the last 4 books feeling like a complete waste of my time. Like, just why would you put me through all of this for... Song of Susanna is entirely about her pregnancy. The whole thing.
that and about them meeting Stephen King. But yeah.
That's... I mean, I'm like, honestly, I'm kind of glad that you hadn't read the whole thing when we started. I don't think you could have held up. I don't think that you could have, like, been good-humored about this throughout. I don't think I could have done it. This is why I didn't host Lost. And I let Jamie do it, because I know myself, and I couldn't pretend.
Yeah.
I would just, and I think both of us going into this not knowing, and you got there ahead of me, and, but, like, you were so close to the end, or I was so far up by the time you got to the end, that the damage had started already, like a book ago.
Yeah. Because I didn't finish Wolves until we were done with, until we were almost through Wizard. And then I flew through Song of Susanna, so that helped. Because I still think there's really good elements of that book. It's like, honestly, looking back on the series
Do
from
you have,
this
like,
point,
a siren? What's going on over there?
what?
Do you not hear that? It keeps sounding like a siren or like some piece of like high-tech machinery is about to take off.
Oh, you know what?
There's like this squealing.
It's actually another laptop in the room that's running right now. I just realized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck? Because I kept thinking it was a siren.
No.
And I was like, there's no way there's 7 fucking sirens going by him right now. Okay, I got you.
No, it's just sometimes the other laptop in the room is running a little hot.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No. I'm sorry about that. So I don't know. Just looking back, like Wolves of the Kala was a disappointment. You know, like not necessarily terrible, but a disappointment. Song of Susanna is, I think it's good, but I also think you have to read it the right way and be in kind of a very specific mindset to really enjoy it. Which does not lend itself well to chapter by chapter recaps. And you know, it's this book that I think is the worst. This is the one that I have a problem with. You know?
Yeah, it got, like, from book 4 on, it got progressively, like, book 4 I was like, I don't know about all this. I still really, looking back from where we are now, I still don't really get it. Why book 4 even really needed to be there the way that it was. There was a lot of interesting storytelling in there and background, sure, but it's a really long book. And what did we really get out of it?
I mean,
that applies now.
The thing about book 4 that I love is the beginning, because it wraps up the Blaine thing. Because book 3 doesn't end in the logical place. But looking at book 4 as just the extended flashback to Meiji. In terms of like what we got for the story, not much. We got the pink ball, right, which sort of sets up Black 13. And we got like the Thinny, which I think shows up later in book 4 when they go back to the present. And then, you know, the story of Susan is sad and, you know, instructive as to who Roland is. I think we get a lot about Roland in that book, kind of like explaining his character a little bit. You know, we get Shimi, stuff like that, but comparably minor things. And I think that's the problem, right? Is because it feels like there's so much there to build on, and he just went in these completely different directions.
Yeah.
It feels so much like a series that was abandoned and picked up again, and abandoned and picked up again, and finally picked up for the last time out of an author-admitted sense of obligation, and
nothing sexier.
And just like, you know, kind of knocked out. Just like perfunctorily completed so he could say it was done. And again, I love the way it ends. The way it ends makes me think so hard about every other aspect of the series, and it makes me just like, when I finished it, I was profoundly struck and moved, and God, I just love the ending so much, but everything else.
That's interesting, because, you know, everybody's trying to... From the beginning, everybody has been basically like, I know you're going to hate the end. So...
Really?
That's like been universally the one thing that everybody has agreed on. That they know I'm going to hate the end. Or at least they go, I'll be interested to hear what you think of the end. And they have that tone. So, we'll see if I agree with you. But yeah.
We will see. I'm interested to hear what you think of the end, Natasha. So, I mean, what else is here. What else do you want to talk about?
I guess the only thing that we got on, like, from the Wizard in Glass is that Oi gets impaled, which I very specifically would not talk about.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
You were like, and did you miss and I was like, and there was nothing about Oi, Miles.
That's right.
Right?
I really want to go back and listen to some of the older episodes of the show. Like, just when we were young and less jaded about this series.
Honestly, I'm kind of relieved that Oi has died because it's obvious, like, he was not doing okay. So, although I do not care for the fact that he was killed at the hands of fucking Mordred, I am very glad that he got to go out in a really great moment of holding up to his duty, defending his friend, you know.
Yeah, blaze of glory.
He literally had his back broken and still was fucking up shit.
Yeah.
Which I can only hope that if we, you know, during the Civil War that's starting tomorrow at 10 a.m., if my back gets broken...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I made an event for it, Miles. You need to join so that you can say what you're bringing to the potluck.
Is it 10 a.m. Eastern time? Because that's a little bit early for me.
It's 10 a.m. Central time. It's 10 a.m. to 10:30.
Okay.
So, you know. But I'm bringing... Everybody voted on the PB&J because I made a poll about what kind of sandwiches I should bring. And other than that, the only thing I've seen that's being brought is the red velvet cake, which is made with the blood of our enemies. And that's what makes it red.
Right.
But yeah, if my back gets broken, I hope that I still fuck shit up. I want to go out like Oi.
That's kind of what I mean about Oi's dying. Like, it sucks that Oi is dead, but, like, the best of the breaking of the Tet pieces is Jake, because it's such an emotional moment. And just King writes it so beautifully. And I think he kind of comes close to it here, but like you said, it just kind of sucks that it's Mordred, and it sucks that, like... It just sucks that Mordred was such a nothing. Just such a nothing. I mean, maybe he'll come back. But for now, you mentioned you didn't think you think he's dead.
I just, also, what kind of gets me about this, and like, again, I love that Oi died defending his friend and everything, but the fact that Mordred really gets nowhere near Roland also kind of fucks me up.
Yeah,
Because that's like the whole thing is supposed to be Arthur versus Mordred. The whole mythology is about him facing the consequences of something that he did. And that was part of why the allegory didn't really work for me, because it was the result of Roland being raped. So it's not really a consequence the way that, you know, in the mythology, Arthur fucks his sister.
Right.
And
cheats on his wife, specifically.
Yeah, and he...
Or wait, is that before they're married?
It's before they're married.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And, you know, he does this... depending on the mythology, it's like part of a rite. And, it's something that, like, he doesn't necessarily know it's his sister, but it is, like, an anonymous woman, and he's doing something that's kind of stupid. And Roland, it's a rape, so it doesn't feel like a consequence of a choice. It's like, no, this is nothing. So that right there did not work for me. And then when they finally, like, have their face-off moment, it really isn't. It's Oi's face-off moment.
Right.
And then Roland just takes care of it with his gun from afar, the way that he always does. And I would have liked if him being confronted with this was like the only time that he wasn't able to use a gun to solve the problem. If something happened to him, and that's what I thought for a second was going to happen, because he reaches down for a gun and realizes that Susanna took one with her. And I didn't think they were going to be like, oh, and his other gun was, because that's not Roland, that he couldn't reach it. But I thought they would do something where, you know, the gun gets taken from him or God knows what. And I don't know. It just turns out to just be another, like, sharpshooting trick. And that's it. And Mordred's dead. And I was just like... I would even have been like, I'm not sure if I buy that Mordred's dead if it weren't for the Red King mental conversation / tantrum.
It's so weirdly straightforward, too, isn't it? Like, Mordred has been following this. Mordred has been following them this whole time. Mm-hmm. Roland has known it. Like, Roland has known that eventually Mordred's going to strike him. Mordred is waiting for Roland to fall asleep. Roland falls asleep knowing that Mordred is waiting for him to fall asleep. Mm-hmm. And then he falls asleep, Mordred attacks, and Oy gets in the way, and Mordred dies. It just...
It's very pat.
Yeah, there's no twist, there's no cleverness, there's no anything, you know? It's just like you said, it feels like a check mark. Like, alright, Mordred, off the list. Got him.
Can I tell you what I secretly hoped was going on here? Because you know the moment where he, like, decides that, oh, I guess I'm just gonna die, and then the Red Father's voice is all like, no, just go a little further, just one more day. I was hoping that Mordred wasn't even real, necessarily. That the Red King had, like, created him as a puppet because he couldn't leave the balcony of the tower. I will never be able to say that without almost laughing. But that's what I was kind of hoping, was that Mordred was the only way that he could do anything to affect what was happening from where he was. And that the voice that Mordred was hearing, he thought was like his dad, but in fact it was like whoever was in charge of him.
Right.
But no. And for some reason at this point, you know, now Roland's hearing the voice inside his head, and he tells Roland that he's going to die of old age before he ever even gets near the tower, and Roland is certain that this dude is telling him the truth. And I don't know how I feel about that. Because there is a big part of me that feels like the point of a journey like this is to realize that you never get what you want. So if Roland doesn't get to go to the tower, that would make total sense to me, even though it would be incredibly frustrating. I wouldn't even be mad about it, to be honest. Like, part of me would be, just because we've gone through all this, but at this point, I don't know. I want to spoil something that I've covered, but I won't. But it's very much like a thing that I'm not saying.
Okay. Is it something I've seen?
No, you haven't yet, but you need to.
Okay. Probably Westworld. Got it.
I don't know what you're talking about at all. But that's all I can say, is that I'm just like, I hope that he can pull this out in some way. I really just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that looks like, you know, at this point.
He says, he knew even now that his idea of coming to the tower on the old monster's blind side and then working his way around was not an idea at all, but a fool's hope. Mm-hmm. There had been no doubt in the old villain's voice, no doubt hiding behind it either. Which is interesting. I don't know. It's weird that they can talk now. I don't know. It's not like...
I have some feelings about that. I have some feelings about the fact that he, like, believes that he's, you know, there's no doubt in his mind about this thing, but then when he says Susanna's got her throat slit, he's like, oh, that's not true.
Right.
There's just a lot about what we're supposed to take for granted Roland knows for sure, and what he can tell is a lie, and what he, like, that I feel is just way too convenient, and I just am supposed to take it on faith, and I don't have that anymore, so you can't do it to me. Anyway, the fact that they can talk now is, frankly, like, the king got rid of everybody that Roland could talk to. Killed them all, except for Patrick, who he can't really talk with. And was like, well, I guess I gotta give him somebody, or else they're just gonna be in silence, and that's gonna be... And he just decided, well, you know, maybe he can talk to the king now, that's fine.
I love that it's like, now he was alone again except for Patrick, and Roland had an idea. Patrick was immune to the terrible germ the gunslinger carried, for he had never been caught to begin with. I only kill my family, Roland thought. Yeah, them and everyone else that you kill. I only kill my family. I mean, and the whole town won.
If we had like a body count, I don't even know. Of Roland from when he became a gunslinger, like, forget it.
Oh, he also takes Patrick's eraser. I forgot about that. He's like, because it's the last one, because they forgot to get the erasers back from Susanna.
Oh, that's right.
So he's like, we might need this later. Taking the eraser, kid.
Yeah, that's, I was, you know what I, like, for a second thought? Was that he was gonna erase Oe being dead.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
I had a moment, because he's sketching Roland while he's sitting with Oe in his lap. And then he goes to get out his eraser. And I was like, oh, is he gonna... And then Roland's like, I'm keeping this. And I was like, fucking Roland, what? And then it doesn't seem like that's what he was getting at all. King, I mean.
Man.
But for a second, I really thought that's what was about to happen. And while I might have been a little bit like, okay, so his death didn't mean anything, I would have much preferred that Oe be alive after running into Mordred. So.
I gotta say, I don't think Roland is, like, fully appreciating the extent of the things you could do with this ability of Patrick's. Like, now that he knows he has this power, I don't know, could you bring them all back?
Right, that's true.
Could you just, like, bring Susanna back if you wanted her back?
And what was the deal? Because he asks him to draw a copy of the rose for each of them. Did that do anything, or was it just because the rose is super pretty?
I don't know. You know, I honestly don't remember if that is about to come into play.
Okay.
But he definitely does, because they're running into Fields of Roses now, and I do like the idea that, like, the rose that they were all obsessed with in the parking lot in New York is just like the kind of rose that grows next to the tower. I dig that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole field of them, right?
Yeah.
I thought that it could have been a little, like, it's a little bit incongruous for me, because I thought the roses that grew at the base of the tower were red. And I didn't think the one that was in the lot was red, but that's stupid. It's just a weird thing that I thought about.
So wait, they aren't?
I mean, it's just...
And then it had like a bright yellow center.
I don't remember the one in the abandoned lot being red, but again, I could be wrong about that. I thought it was purple.
What? Oh no, it ain't purple.
Was
I
it
know
red?
That one for sure, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was purple. But anyway, the color of the roses is thoroughly beside the point. Patrick, he wants Patrick to draw him a picture of the rose, and then draw like two copies basically, one for Patrick and one for himself. We don't know if that's important or why it might be at this point, but definitely the roses make him feel better, which is nice, because the last conversation he had with Oe, he was giving him shit. Which he feels bad about.
I can't express how much, like, the whole idea of saying something and then somebody dying is, like, this deep, horrible fear of mine. Like...
We've talked about this.
Oh my god, it's so... I can't handle it at all. And I have a friend on Facebook who lost his wife, like, a year ago last week. And things were really bad between them. And then she died totally unexpectedly of an aneurysm. And it's bad enough when things were great and you just miss somebody. But the weird guilt that comes with things having been not great, and then it's just, I can't. It's the worst thing. And the fact that King chose to end it that way is like the truest thing from this whole book, practically.
Yeah.
You know?
I do. Yeah, I agree with that.
And I like that's the one thing that I did really like about this chapter is the amount of times that we see Roland second guessing himself and asking, is this, like, okay? Did I fuck up? Should I have said this thing or that thing?
Right.
We've never seen him not completely 100% self-assured. It just has not happened. And the couple times that he has been at all doubtful have been really scary.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, he straight up just doesn't even know what's happening, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, we are, he's getting closer to his goal, and he doesn't know what he's going to do when he gets there, which is a nice place for the story to be. When he's like, we're going to keep going, but the Crimson King says he can kill me, and I believe him. So I don't really know why we're going, just that we're going. Mm-hmm. It's a good place as a character for Roland, I think. It's just that, I just think we could have gotten here so much earlier with such fewer complications. It's just... Anyway. So, this has been a rough chapter.
Yeah.
You guys knew it would be. You all listening to this knew that this chapter was going to be about Mordred and Oid dying. So don't pretend when you went into this that you didn't know exactly what the reaction was going to be.
You sons of bitches. Bunch of dicks. Alright, well, I'm going to say hi to new patrons.
Do it.
This week we've got Daniel Sparks. That's a good name.
Yeah.
Shuri Zulu, also a good name. Regina Petroshenko. Well, damn. Brian.
Wait,
let me down, Brian. Do let me down. Yep.
Oh, man. Thank you for being a patron, Brian. But
and Jacqueline. And Annie Alvarado. Alvarado. I can't roll my tongue. It's real bad.
I can't do it either. Sharon makes fun of me for it all the time.
But welcome to all of you guys. Thank you all so much for being patrons. And make sure to join the Facebook group for patrons and the Discord chat. And, there's just all kinds of stuff going on for patrons. I sent out the $10 postcards last week. They arrived late from Moo because there was a mistake in the printing. So they went out later than usual, but I got tagged in a photo of one, so they finally started to arrive. So if you're $10 and up, you should be getting yours soon. And I have coming up on Saturday, the 7th of July at 2 p.m. Central Time, I will be doing a live book club on Crowdcast with Candace covering Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, which I have started. I'm about a third of the way through. I like it much better than I expected. Candace does not like this book, so this should be an interesting conversation. And everybody's invited. That is not patrons only. So I'm looking forward to that because that's the first live book club I've done in a while. I had been doing them live. There was all kinds of problems with YouTube and people weren't really coming to them, and I stopped. And I decided to pick back up on it again because I think it's helpful to have if I didn't really like a book or if a book just didn't mean that much to me personally and it did to somebody who has been waiting for me to read it. I would like to hear their thoughts while I'm talking about it so that I can kind of address that. So, y'all should check that out. It's in the events on the Facebook page at facebook.com/unspoiledpod. And I'm going to be working this weekend on how to add certain things to my actual website, and I'm going to try and put the Facebook events into the website embedded somehow so that y'all can see them a little bit more easily if you're not actually a Facebook user. But I think that's it. All right, sir, please take it away.
All right. Well, I actually have a new thing to plug. Finally,
dun, dun, dun.
This week at long last.
Oh boy, what is it?
I got a new article up on yesmagazine.com, and I haven't written anything for them in about 3 years. And actually, the last thing I wrote for them was a piece about how social media can be used to kind of build community. This piece is a little bit less pro social media. Same basic topic, though, at least in a general sense. The headline is, "The people behind your tech addiction are now trying to curb it." And it's an article about the Center for Humane Technology and their partnership with Common Sense Media and the Truth About Tech campaign to sort of educate kids and parents and families about the fact that your communication devices, smartphones, iPads, tablets, all that stuff, are in fact addictive and are designed to be addictive. One of the big things that the CHT is all about is just making sure people know and understand that that the fact that you can't, that your spouse or your family or your parents or whatever are like bugging you to get off your phone all the damn time, like that's built into the design of the device. It is meant to hold your attention. Just like, and this is this big kind of like competitive, somebody innovates and everybody else struggles to catch up kind of industry. Like all of a sudden Netflix is playing the next episode before you even ask it to. Well, now YouTube plays the next video, right? And now Facebook auto-plays videos instead of waiting for you to play. It's this big thing where they're trying to race each other to your attention, because your attention is money in this economy. So, yeah, I had a lot of fun writing the piece. It was, it didn't, I'm going to be honest, it didn't turn out exactly the way I had hoped because of a variety of factors. But I still like it. I still think that it's worth reading if you're interested in technology and kind of where we're going with that. Check out the Center for Humane Technology. They're very interesting. Tristan Harris is the sort of main guy behind it, and he's been doing a lot of podcasts and media in the last year or two. So he's really, really fascinating guy, and check out some of the stuff he's doing, and yeah, just read the piece, guys, because like the more hits it gets, the better it is for me. So yeah, that's the big new thing. The regular old stuff, mjschneiderman.com, Smash Fiction Podcast, Odyssey Storytelling Podcast, universesofthemind.com, where there is still, of course, no new content. And, yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it there for now, because I talked a lot about the Yes article. I'm excited about it. So
Awesome. Well...
Oh, and also Geek Wars, the episode where Claire and I of the Smash Fiction Podcast compete in the first round of Geek Wars is officially live right now on the Geek Wars podcast, so go check that out. Sorry.
Geek Wars.
Yeah. This is, spoiler alert, this is the one where Game of Thrones is a category.
Oh
and
God.
Miles talks a lot of shit about how there's no Game of Thrones question he can't answer.
Surprise, bitch.
Surprise, bitch.
Oh.
It's some bullshit, though. It is some straight bullshit. Go listen to the episode and listen to what I'm talking about.
Miles told me what the question is, and it is bullshit.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I really have a problem with it and call bullshit on it.
Yeah, I agree. It's
But,
still a
yeah,
good show, though.
Y'all need to figure it out. Go listen. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to us, bitch, again.
Yeah, appreciate
I guess
it.
that's what this show is now. And
Well-
we will see you next week with a new chapter.
Yeah, next week is The Crimson King and the Dark Tower. Technically, like from a not epilogue or coda standpoint, the last chapter of the book.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.